Welcome, everyone. At this time, the meeting of the Centennial School Board is called to order at 6:32 p.m. on May 11th, and a quorum is present. Hello and welcome, everyone. I thank you guys for joining us here, and those of you that are joining us virtually. The meeting agenda has been distributed in the board book. Are there any amendments to the agenda needed?
Chair Slawski, I have one request about the class size report that's in the confirmation items. I think that there may be a little bit of discussion, and so maybe we should pull that out of the confirmation items.
Excellent. Do I need to hear a motion for that? Or, nope. We can just decide. Okay, we'll move that out. And then can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Recording in progress.
We got a unanimous vote that the agenda is approved. I'd like to now turn it over to Superintendent Owens to introduce any guests.
Terrific. It's my pleasure to introduce Kim Burns. I'll give you a little bit of her bio and also allow Director Paul Southerton to share any comments that he has, and then allow Kim to say any brief comments that she might have as well. And she's on the screen right now too, so welcome. So it is my pleasure to share the selection of our new Dining Services Director, Kim Burns. Kim is replacing the vacancy as a result of John Waker's retirement after 23 years with Centennial, so thank you for your service, John. We're fortunate to select Kimberly from a strong pool of applicants. A special thank you to the interview committees who provided valuable input, including dining services staff members. Kim has 20 years of experience working in school nutrition in East Multnomah County. Working for Reynolds School District, she served in the nutrition office in a variety of roles. In her most recent role as Nutrition Services Program Coordinator, Kimberly is well versed in USDA requirements, the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program, the Fresh Fruit and Veggie Grant, which is a great grant, by the way, Farm to School, summer programming, and more. Additionally, she is proficient in the Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Program guidelines and has budgetary and audit experience in both the public and private sectors. Prior to working for school district, Kim worked in the banking industry where she gained management experience and a strong background in accounting and budgetary regulations. For the past 13 years, Kim's held a certification with the School Nutrition Association. Additionally, she has served on the board of the Oregon School Nutrition Association and is an SNA National Conference Award recipient. Kim is looking forward to bringing her knowledge and passion in school nutrition to the Centennial School District. And in her spare time, Kim enjoys spending time with her spouse Brian and their children and grandchildren. They enjoy game nights with family, boating, camping, and traveling. Kim is an avid lover of music and has lived in East County her entire life. Kim began her role with Centennial this last week, Monday, May 9th, and is working with John for the next little bit to ensure a seamless transition. So please join me in congratulating Kim Burns and welcoming her to the Centennial School District. We're fortunate to have her 2 decades of school nutrition expertise in the role of Dining Services Director, and I will allow Director Southerton to make any brief comments that he has as he will be Kim's supervisor.
We're excited to have Kim join our team. She's already hit the ground running, met with our kitchen managers and much of our staff. She's working with John on a great transition plan to support summer feeding and to continue serving our students with robust menus and opportunities in our dining services program next year. So we're excited to have her join our team and happy that Kim's here and grateful for John for his many years of service.
Thank you, Director Southerton and Superintendent Owens, and welcome, Kim. We're so excited to have you and can't wait to meet you and see you around. All right, let's see here. Oh, would you like to say a couple words, Kim? That would be fantastic.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim, and I have already been out in the district. I've made it to every school except one.
So we're really excited to be hitting the ground running. I spent the morning at Centennial High watching the satellite programming. It was amazing. And just getting to know everyone. And I hope to be able to see all of you soon and meet everybody. And I'm just very excited for the opportunity and very grateful that John will be with me for approximately 2 months before we get going. So I'm excited to see what we can do for what I can bring to Centennial and just continue John's legacy there. So looking forward to working with everyone.
Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much. Let's see here. The meeting, let's see. Approval of minutes. The meeting minutes were distributed in the board book. Are there any corrections or amendments? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to
Motion to
approve.
approve the minutes.
Excellent.
Second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Since there is a unanimous decision, the minutes will be approved. Next up on our list is public forum. We did have one comment come in that I'd like to address today. There was a concern about a bus stop at the corner of Division and 157th and the impact of a homeless camp in that area on the youth and their families. This issue has been turned over to superintendents, and we will definitely get some follow-up on that as time allows. Okay. Reports. Please join me in welcoming our student representative, Jessie Fonseca. Jessie, please proceed with your report.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jesse Fonseca, and I will be reporting about what's going on at the high school. I do need the ability to share screen, please. Okay, perfect. So May is actually a really packed month for Centennial High School. Can everyone see the report? Okay, great. So first, I do want to clarify something. At the last meeting, I believe I reported that prom would be closed to seniors only, and that was my mistake. I had confused that with the court. So as you know, there's usually a royalty court that goes with prom or any school dance, and that is only for seniors. But prom itself, the dance, is available to juniors and seniors. Tickets are now selling, so if you want to let any seniors know and continue, our yearly tradition, make sure these, excuse me, and then there's the Sweetie Be Mine competition, which is ending today, but it's where everyone likes to submit their proposals, and winners, first, second, and third place will be receiving free tickets, I believe, if that's in the poster. And yeah, prices will get higher as the weeks go on, but there's also a lot of fun events. I'm looking really forward to mini golf at prom. I think that'd be really fun. Yeah, generally excited for it. And then on a similar note, for seniors, the senior all-night party is happening this year, which I'm really excited about. Tickets are selling now, and I believe there's an 80% attendance requirement for this event. And in addition to that, seniors are required to not bring anything to the all-night party. Like, everything there will be provided. The location's at Big Al's. And it'll be running from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So it lives up to its name of being an all-night party. Next is the talent show, which auditions have started already and will be closing this Friday. And so people can just put in their submissions. I think somebody just got home, excuse me. And then, excuse me for a moment. I'm sorry, excuse me about that. Yeah, as I was saying, the talent show is also happening as well. And if you notice, we're just bringing a lot of our yearly traditions back, which I'm really excited about. It's nice to see that we're bringing back these community events as we try to come back from COVID-19. And in addition to that, I think this may be a new event, or at least I haven't seen it since I was in my 4 years of being in Centennial, which is Mr. Centennial. It is the male catered pageant. So what is really interesting about this event is that they're trying to bring in like a sense of community service with it, and that you have to make a pledge to be to United with Unity Week. So like through youth mental health and body insecurity, each contestant will have to raise at least $50 through pledges to be able to participate, and only 20 applicants will be selected. So the applications will close tomorrow, May 12th. And this is an event I'm really excited about. I haven't seen something like it in my 4 years here. So lots of new things that are coming up along with our previous traditions. Speaking of traditions, the He-Man game is coming up soon. Participants have already received notification of the 4 practices that are going to be happening now and between game day. And I believe 2 of them, attendance to 2 of the practices are required in order to participate. This is for juniors and seniors. But it's also unfortunate to report that Powder Puff didn't receive enough participants, and so that event had to be canceled. And next up is the school musical. And if you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend that you go see it. It is really moving. It has like really charming and funny bits. And then also at one point, it almost moved me to tears with one of the songs. I believe it's showing tomorrow and Friday, and then Saturday as well. Tomorrow and Friday, it's showing only at 7 p.m. and then Saturday at 2 and 7 p.m. Tickets can be bought from either the QR code or using the website URL below at the bottom of the poster. $10 for students and seniors, $12 for adults, and it's worth it. It was a really amazing event and reminds me of the Newsies production back from my freshman year. And finally, this is promoting an event that I've been involved in. The 21st is Monoma County's second Youth Mental Health Forum. And the focus of this is to really promote, to have a space where youth can speak out and have a platform that'll connect them directly to like policymakers and like people who can really like influence, for example, school communities. We've been building this event, we've been planning it out. It's completely open. Any Centennial student or hopefully some board members as well will attend. And speaking of students can also volunteer for the event as it is youth focused, and we really want to be promoting youth voice and being able to share this opportunity to anyone who needs it, especially after COVID-19. So lots happening this month. I'm really excited, and of course graduation as well next month. With all that being said, are there any questions?
No questions here, but I do want to just say I'm really excited about what May is going to bring to Centennial. And I wanted to let you know that the Mr. Centennial pageant is actually older than me. And it's a really cool pageant. And I'm happy they're bringing that back as well, too. It was back, I think the last time they had it was like in the 80s.
Oh,
yeah. So
yeah.
I'm really excited. And then also, I would love to go to the musical. I had planned on it, and sadly, because not sadly, but a lot of the reasons that happen, I'm also in the reproductive justice movement, and so we have been having to ramp up, and so I will not be able to see that musical, but I'm looking forward to seeing more musicals in the future next year. I'm a musical fan. And then also, thank you for bringing up the mental health forum and the date. I will also make sure to, and I'm sure that James can put this in his, like a reminder for us as a date to come, because I would like to be part of that. So thank you.
Yes, please. That would be great. Feel free to share within any of your circles. And for people, any board members who are especially interested in attending, feel free to message me or email me, and I can connect you with the planning committee, as it is a little bit different for adults because, of course, we want people who can really be channeling and taking up what the youth are saying at that event. So I would be happy to do that for anyone interested. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'm not usually one to see myself out, but it's been AP season and I have a lot of work to catch up on. So with that being said, thank you for having me, and I wish everyone a good night.
Thank you
Thank you
so much, Jesse.
Take care, everyone.
Excellent. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Owens. The floor is yours.
Great. I've got some exciting information to share, so let me get queued up and hopefully this works correctly. All right. So the first thing is the finishing touches are being made to the spring community mailer, which will be mailed to all district residents in the coming weeks. The community mailer was developed as a part of Destination 2023 back almost 5 years ago in 2017 as a way to provide broader community outreach as to the efforts of the district. Chief Communications Officer Cassie Swenson, who unfortunately is not able to be here tonight, nevertheless has been working diligently to develop this report and has been working with ESD 112 for the design, layout, and printing. The report does a nice job of showcasing the work in the district, and I'll show you the mailer. I don't have a hard copy today, but I can show you the digital print version so you'll know what to expect. Per our normal practice, the hard copy will be in English and Spanish with the English, Spanish, and Russian on our website, and we can expect it to arrive in homes by the end of May. And I know that there was Director Andrews, who I believe had an issue previously of not having received it, so we've troubleshooted that piece, and so I think we'll be able to make sure it's in every district residence. There's an issue with Clackamas County. Yep, the district residences in Clackamas County, so we're actually going to work with Flow Analytics and see if they can't give us the full complement of addresses. It's just narrowing down Centennial addresses in Clackamas County, and I know also Executive Assistant Jordan has been working on that as well with the elections office. So between the two of them, we'll get it. Here is just a little sneak preview of the report to the community. And you can see specifically we've targeted, you can see little tabs up in the corner, student-focused teaching and learning, for example. So we're really trying to make sure that that's aligned with our strategic plan. And so we know that what we're showcasing is in alignment with what we're prioritizing as a district. So I'm not going to give you too much of a sneak preview, but you can see that there are a lot of bond elements here and a lot of other things that we're working on as a district as well. All right, I made a promise at the beginning of the year to try to steer clear of education ease. So if I get too far in the weeds on some of this, just pull me back a little bit. But I did want to give you a status update as far as Destination 2023 and give you a little preview of what we're going to be working on over the next 14 or so months. So speaking of the strategic plan, I wanted to speak about two topics related to Destination 2023 and the steps related to it, knowing that 22-23 school year is just around the corner. And you'll see in front of you, if you're here in physical session, you'll also see it on this sheet. This is our 5-year strategic plan graphic. It obviously isn't the actual plan, but it's the graphic that we established about 5 years ago. And then this lighter sheet here is something I'll touch on here in a minute as well. But those are the two visuals you have before you. The first thing I'll mention is that this year our primary focus has been on the following key areas, which are the transition of 6th grade to the middle school, the conversion of Oliver Elementary into a middle school, and the comprehensive boundary adjustment process, which were all products of the bond, which was part of our long-range facilities plan and our strategic plan. COVID-19 health and safety protocols has also been a focus area for us as well. And I want to be clear that when Destination 2023 was developed, we did not incorporate pandemic responses as one of our strategies. So that wasn't in there. However, much of our time over the last couple of years obviously has been distance learning, hybrid instruction, layered mitigation protocols, staffing shortages, etc. So to not name this would be disingenuous to reality and an insult to our educators who've been spending a considerable amount of time on these areas. And then last but not least, other Destination 2023 strategies to the extent that we can implement them. With several of the above listed items now established or underway, so bond projects are underway. We've got the middle school that we're gearing up and ready to go with. We've got sixth grade in the middle school. We've got the boundaries established. So a lot of that stuff is I wouldn't say accomplished, but we've got it going. I want to turn our attention to the remainder of this year and give you a sneak preview for next year. So you'll see here what we've established as our core, kind of the big rocks, the things that we'll really want to make sure get in the jar first, so to speak, if you've heard of that analogy. The first is aligning for student success, which I'll explain in a moment. Then we'll talk about district strategic planning. So next year is 2023, and we'll want to be thinking about what our strategic plan is going to look like past 2023. And then what are we doing for Destination 2023 in and of itself, because school's still happening, and so it's important that we're making sure that we're attending to the students that are here now. So in the 2022-23 school year, and I won't spend too long on this because we'll want to spend some focus time as a board between now and the fall, perhaps at our board retreat this summer, talking about this particular item in more detail. But the district will be focused on aligning for student success, which involves integrating 6 ODE initiatives, which are currently separated out into silos, into one comprehensive plan. And so those 6 silos, 5 of which have funding sources behind them, but currently require a separate plan. And so you have isolated things happening in different departments that aren't synergized. Our high school success, also known as Measure 98, the student investment account, which is part of the Student Success Act, continuous improvement planning, which is our regular strategic planning that also connects with our general fund, career and technical education, everyday matters, which is related to attendance, and early indicator and intervention system, which is related to multi-tiered systems of support. So that's where the education ease is really picking up here. So like I said, I just wanted to touch on this so you had a sneak preview of that. And like I said, this summer we can talk about this in more detail. So back to these focus areas, we have district strategic planning, which I'll touch on next. The idea for aligning for student success, and then as it relates to district strategic planning, the idea is to submit a plan to the state in the spring of 2023 that aligns with those key areas that I just went over into one plan that braids the funding sources together instead of has siloed applications. Because we're already planning to revisit Destination 2023 in the interest of establishing a new 5-year strategic plan, this will provide the perfect time to synergize those 2 efforts together. We already have that state requirement to incorporate the aligning for student success, and then we have the opportunity to look at Destination 2023 and cast that out further. So that's a brief snapshot of our longer term planning during and post 2023, which leads me to what we'll be doing over the next 14 months with respect to our current strategic plan. And so for that reason, and I shared this recently in one of my weekly updates to the board, I'm pleased to share with you the Destination 2023 one-pager, which outlines key priorities and strategies over the next 14 months through the end of the 22-23 school year. This document reflects the collaborative work that staff and our administrators have engaged in over the last few months to try to streamline our efforts from dozens of strategies to this narrowed set of key priorities and strategies for each of our 4 key focus areas. So in Destination 2023, if you look at it in total, there's about 50 actions or strategies in it, which we've realized with the pandemic, that's not realistic for us to accomplish. So we said, what do we really need to focus on here? And that's where you'll see, under each of these key focus areas, there's 2, 3, or 4 strategies. Even in and of itself, there's 13 pieces, and, I would want to see that streamlined down. But I'd say 7 of those are really school-based, and the remaining are more district level, so it's kind of split up that way. We envision this one-pager to be an anchor document that helps focus Centennial staff's efforts in an aligned fashion, and we see it being used regularly at the beginning of professional learning sessions to help staff understand how that day's activities relate to the broader set of priorities. We plan to provide each staff member a hard copy of this with a little bit better paper here in the near future. And possible future plans include an electronic version that has hyperlinks for each of the action plan strategies for the purpose of alignment, clarity, and transparency. So anybody in the district can click on these and say, what's the action plan when we're talking about an assessment system, just so that we can enhance our alignment as a district. Finally, as I imagine you're aware, COVID-19 cases are again on the rise. 2 weeks ago, the CDC level for Multnomah County was raised from green to yellow, and we're seeing a resulting rise of cases in Centennial as well. As of spring break, we've loosened our restrictions and have began allowing community and family events, and with those come an inherent risk of increased disease transmission. Our cabinet continues to discuss COVID-19 practices and protocols to see if there's areas where we need to consider increased restrictions, and plan to continue this discussion at our cabinet meeting tomorrow. All of that's to say is that this continues to be a fluid virus and fluid response, and so it's incumbent upon us to be tracking trends and seeing if there are areas that we need to tighten up. So with that, I will conclude, and that concludes my superintendent's report. I welcome any questions or comments the board might have.
Director Andrews.
Totally off topic. Is there a retirement dinner planned this year? I know last year it was virtual.
Great question. I will invite Dr. Katsuda to give us a little bit of information about that, if you don't mind. We'll make sure that the board gets an invite.
The board has been invited. Actually, I think the invitation's coming.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Superintendent Owens? I'm looking at our online folks. Director Lynn?
Yeah, I would just say thanks for all the hard work. I know it's been really tough going through the COVID time. I would love to see more on the community engagement, community partnerships, and I look forward to seeing that, and volunteering if there needs extra hands on deck.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, I believe we're good to move forward. Superintendent Owens, would you like to introduce our next report?
Absolutely. Let's try that again. Who is it? I think it might have been me. All right, let's try this again. All right, so I am introducing Director Southerton, who will be giving us the next two reports. The first one is going to be an audit best practices report. Without trying to steal Paul's thunder too much, I will just say that there was an audit that was conducted recently. Those findings were provided, and we were overall given a very good audit result, but there were 5 findings that the board had requested more information about what we would do in terms of remediating those findings. Followed by a surplus property and equipment report that Director Southerton will provide as well. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director Southerton for the next 2 reports.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Owens. As Superintendent Owens said, we received a clean audit report earlier this year for our 2020-2021 financials. But the auditors did have some comments that we had some opportunity to maybe look at some best practices and some things for the board to consider. And so I'll review those now with some potential options and things that the administration recommends and opportunities for the board to provide feedback. So just a reminder, the purpose of the audit, we'll be covering that, the audit results, a review of best practice, and then an opportunity for board guidance and direction. So the purpose of the audit is to have an outside independent auditor conduct review of our financials. They take a sampling and they do inquiries and analytical work at our financials, our processes, our procedures, just to evaluate them against generally accepted accounting principles and practices, Oregon municipal audit law and related administrative rules, and then federal and state and other agency rules and regulations related to expenditures of our federal awards and other funding sources. The results that we received were an unmodified opinion of the financial statements. This means that we were given a clean audit opinion with no reservations of the district practices, financial documents, or compliance issues. And otherwise, we would have received what's called a modified opinion, which is what you don't want in an audit result, and that's where they find findings of significant deficiencies or other issues. So having an unmodified opinion is the standard that we're looking for when we have an audit. They did, as I stated, had some best practice recommendations. This is a kind of particular phrase I appreciated from our auditors regarding best practice. This is an industry term they don't particularly like. It doesn't mean that it's the best way to do something or that you even have to change your current process. For us, this is simply a communication of some amount of risk, whether it is small or large, that the board should know about. And it's a quote from our auditors, not for myself. So just to kind of provide some context for it. So the 5 items that they did note was our Fidelity Insurance coverage or crime insurance, internal and external crimes. 403B compliance, that 403B is an elective retirement plan. Bank statements, documentation of review, ASB accounts or student body accounts, bank statements, timely reconciliation was an issue noted, and then management communication, wanting to offer a confidential reporting, a way to report issues to management. I'll go in some deeper detail on each of these and then provide opportunity for the board to provide feedback and direction. In regards to Fidelity Insurance, the auditors noted that our coverage through PACE is $1 million, which may or may not be appropriate, but they recommend the board consider and provide direction. Additional coverage may be appropriate given the higher than usual fund balance with bond projects and also other special COVID recovery funds right now. It's something the board should weigh on a cost versus coverage kind of measurement. In regards to the 403B compliance issue, the district uses a third party to assist with 403B compliance results. That third party provider does not provide the district with what's called an SSAE 18 service provider report or internal control reports covering their operations. So the auditors recommend that we continue to monitor this vendor and their processes and then work with them on providing such an accountability report. And also consider if this is sufficient documentation or if we should consider using another vendor or bringing this process inside to the district. They note that the district should also be named as an additional insured on the vendor's insurance policy. At this point, the district has contacted the vendor and requested their internal report covering their operations. It is noted that they do not handle any of our funds, so the risk for exposure is minimal based on the services that they provide the district, but still we want to be in good practice, so we are requesting that report, and we have requested that we be named as an additional insured. The vendor has responded favorably to both of those requests. District bank reconciliations, it was noted that during the review of the bank statements and reconciliations, auditors found that bank reconciliations had no indication when they were prepared by the budget analyst or reviewed by the accounting supervisor. The auditors recommend the bank statements reconciliation preparer and reviewer initial and date the reconciliations to show evidence of review has occurred and to enhance internal control. This has been implemented in the district. Activity fund bank reconciliations. During the testing, the auditor noticed that bank reconciliations for a checking account at Patrick Lynch appeared to not have been prepared or reviewed until requested by the auditor. They recommend that all reconciliations are prepared and reviewed in a timely manner to enhance internal controls. This has also been implemented by the district across the district, and we are assuring compliance on a monthly basis. In regards to management communication, during the review of the management communication, the auditors found that some employees were unaware of a confidential method for informing management of any suspicious activity without fear of retribution or negative consequences. The auditors recommend a confidential avenue for communication to be maintained if not already in place, and that employees be trained on its existence and use. The auditors want to make sure that employees have and know a method of reporting suspicious activity without fear of retribution. They state that this can be as simple as making sure employees understand that they can confidentially go to their supervisor or fill out a reporting form with anything they find suspicious and know there will be no repercussions on their end. Key factors they note are that employees are informed that they have this avenue as an option, understand it, and understand that there will be no negative consequences for doing so. This is something that we're in the process of implementing as definitely a best practice that we can support as the other ones noted above. So in regards to board direction, we are looking specifically for the board to consider the Fidelity Insurance coverage. Is $1 million of a coverage appropriate? Do we want to consider more, given the additional amount of fund balance that we're carrying right now due to bond projects and due to special COVID funds? Or does the board think that this is an appropriate level of coverage for risk? Just a reminder, this is crime insurance coverage for internal or external crimes that may have occurred. So internal example would be an embezzlement or something like that, misappropriation of funds. External would be, you may have heard of phishing scams, they call, where people try and get bank account information. People try and have you wire money to vendors that aren't really vendors. So those are examples of crimes that are covered under our insurance policy right now, up to $1 million, which is the standard coverage for PACE. Some feedback from our agent of record is no other school districts customers that they have in the PACE program, they currently purchase more than $1 million. If we were to purchase additional coverage, we'd have to complete a separate application and shop for best options. In their experience, those public agencies that purchase more coverage are generally much larger and usually self-insured. Another group that has purchased additional crime coverage in the past are those that are in the middle of large bond projects, such as I cited, or have significant amounts of money coming in and out on an ongoing basis. The level of coverage that they see in those situations are generally between $2 and $3 million worth of coverage, and the cost to the district is estimated to be somewhere between $8,000 and $25,000. They haven't priced it recently, and that's why there's such a wide gap, and it does depend if we're selecting $2 million or $3 million in coverage. So the question for the board is $1 million of Fidelity Insurance coverage appropriate for the district, or should we pursue a different additional coverage? I welcome any response you may have on that, as well as other questions you may have on the audit.
Great, thank you, Director Southerton. We'll go around the horn. This time we'll start with Director Lynn.
I'm in favor of maintaining the insurance as is, and I have no other questions on the audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Andrews.
Director Southerton, when we had the hack last year and had to replace equipment, was that considered a crime? And if so, did this insurance kick in?
Excellent question, Director Andrews. So you're citing the cyber intrusion event that we took place in March of 2021. That was covered by PACE in some regards. Without getting into any specific details, the coverage is slightly different this year because of the prevalence of that issue. But it would be a separate coverage policy from crime. That would be a cyber policy.
My point is $1 million doesn't go very far in a situation like that. So $8,000 to $25,000 doesn't, but then you only get double the coverage. I tend to think in this, but you're saying that the cyber stuff isn't covered under this particular recommendation or suggestion.
That's correct. Cyber is a separate policy from the crime policy. We do currently have an option to pursue a cyber policy, again, without getting into too much detail.
Thank you, Director Andrews. Vice Chair Fuller.
I have no questions at this moment in time, and I think, yeah, I'm gonna agree with Director Lynn
Great.
that we just, yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. Director Shields.
No questions at this time?
Great, thank you very much. I agree that we should stay at the 1 million coverage level. One of the things that Director Southerton had told me when we were talking about this is that most of our payments are made by check and not by electronic payment, which is a main way that that fraud is happening. So it's an extra protective factor that we have, and that definitely led to my decision to support that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please, go right ahead.
Are you going to talk about the 403B audit? Did you have more follow-up on that recommendation? I'm sorry, or the 403B
go right ahead.
topic? I'm sorry, I was waiting for more follow-up on that.
Thank you, Chair, or Director Andrews, for the question on the 403B follow-up. So the follow-up on that was we reached out to the vendor, and they're going to provide that compliance report and list us as an additional insured. Similar to the other best practice recommendations, it's already on the way to being implemented.
But didn't they say something about having a 403B audit? Or was that, I was trying to read and follow along, and what, because one of the, I'm not sure how much participation we have here in the 403B program. Yes, that's the slide. Okay, okay, so we are following up on the recommendation specifically.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you both. Please proceed. Director Southerton.
Great, thank you, Chair Solowski. So I'd like to follow up with my second report tonight is on surplus property. And this is just an opportunity again to present the board with information, but also the administration would like to receive some feedback and possible direction on the process for surplus property and equipment in the district, as we will have some upcoming opportunities with surplus property and equipment in the district with some of our bond projects. So I'll start by just providing an update of the process, identifying some of the surplus opportunities that are coming up in the district, review the current policies that the board has in place, and then request input from the board and field questions. You're killing me. It's not sharing again, sorry. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That happened, you know. All right. So again, this is the overview that I'll be providing, or the agenda I'll be following today and sharing, so everybody can see the screen. So just a reminder on surplus, or reviewing kind of where we've been. The board declared surplus our Centennial Park School, the auxiliary bus lot, Butler Creek, and 5 of the Marie Street properties. Those have all been sold and funded. There's one remaining Marie Street property that's been recently vacated, and it's in what I would describe as fixer condition. If you're familiar with real estate terms, it needs some work. The decision point on this is the option to invest in repairs and list it as a fixer property. We've received feedback from our real estate experts that in its current condition, they would list it on the open market, so we don't know what it would bring, but they estimate that in current condition, it would be $300,000 versus approximately $340,000 if we invest $30,000 to $40,000 in repairs and spend 3 to 5 months to do that. So we will be looking for some feedback from the board on that. The additional surplus opportunities are in regards to equipment. We have some furniture from Oliver that will be displaced. We've reached out to other elementary schools to make sure that we are taking the best and the most usable furniture and placing it at all our other elementary schools. But there will be some furniture that is heavily used and well loved over the years, and but might still have some some usable life into it that our community might be interested or others may have a use for. So we would go through the surplus property process for that. We additionally have some old food service equipment that has been in storage for many years that was in Conex containers on the bus lot and not needed. We have some other obsolete property that's no longer useful to the district or not suitable for school use or too costly to repair. These are all items that would go through our normal surplus property process that's in board policy. So just a refresher or to share with folks, the surplus property policy is policy DN. It's currently approved by the board and in force. The superintendent may at any time declare district personal property as surplus and authorized to disposal when such property is no longer useful to the district, unsuitable for school use, too costly to repair, or obsolete. If reasonable attempts to dispose of surplus properties fail to produce a monetary return for the district, the superintendent may dispose of them in another manner. And the AR on this policy says we should try and do a sale of surplus property. The sale of outdated surplus property will be conducted by the district when the accumulation of such equipment and supplies justifies a sale. If the surplus equipment and materials do not warrant the expense of a sale, the items may be disposed in the manner least expensive to the district. District residents, when feasible, shall receive prior notification of such sales, so they will have an equal opportunity to take advantage of such a sale. If such a sale fails to produce any interested buyers or bidders, such material may then, at the discretion of the superintendent, be disposed of as scrap, junk, or donated to the appropriate charitable or educational industry agencies. So this is just an opportunity for us to look at the process and look at the procedure and kind of see if we're in the right ballpark. The board policy does direct the district to pursue a sale first, so kind of monetizing the asset. And the question to the board is this the right process? I have heard feedback or received ideas and suggestions on should we look to donate first? Should we look for another community use first? And so the administration has to follow board policies. The board gets to set the policies. So this is an opportunity for us to just consider that, as we know we may have some things coming up in the future in a larger volume than normal. And so that's the reason for providing this report and seeking feedback. So only if reasonable attempts to dispose of property fail to produce a monetary return, then is when the district is currently allowed to pursue donation to another agency or other disposal. This policy does comply with gift of public funds, which is a consideration we have to take into account when we're donating items. So with that, I welcome any direction the board have or may have feedback. Specifically, the administration would like to know, is this the correct policy, or is a board policy update or changes to the process desired by the board?
Thank you very much. We'll go around the room again. This time, we will start with Director Shields.
It appears that we use public funds to purchase these items, and so to have those items sold and then brought back, those proceeds being brought back into the district coffers, if you will, to be expended on our students, our buildings, our staff, seems appropriate to me. So I see it as a correct process, and I don't see any need to update or change the process that's you presented this evening.
Thank you. We'll go with Director Andrews.
I don't see any need to change the process. I assume that not everything will sell, and then we can look at donations. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lynn?
Yeah, I've definitely been pushing to update this policy because I think it's very backward looking. And when you're only looking to monetize something, you're not always getting the best value for it. And we are not just an isolated school district living on an island. We are part of a community, and should be working together with all other levels of government to address the issues that our students and families are facing. And so in looking for value, we should be thinking of possibly one, local emergencies We've had a 10-year housing emergency declared. We have constant complaints and issues with housing issues in our community, and surplus property is sometimes could be used in other valuable ways to address those types of emergencies. We have local service agencies that could be considered. We have local tribes. We also have student benefit groups that could be directly, donated to, or some surplus property repurposed that really go to helping those students, whether it's homeless students, students with facing nutritional needs, whatever. So there's a lot of other considerations that we should be thinking of, not just money and what's the maximum dollars we can get for the district, and then just give away the surplus property otherwise. So that's why I think we need an update on this.
Great. Thank you, Director Lynn. I'd like to hear from Vice Chair Fuller.
Yes, I agree with Director Lynn. Right now, we are in I would have to say, a catastrophic emergency right now when it comes to our housing crisis and our food insecurity. And I think for far too long, I mean, I know we can only do so much, but if we have property that we can start to think out of the box on and really see how we can benefit our community that's at large, that is in need of help, I think that we can really start to change the thought process of just seeing a dollar. Support for many communities is more than just money. It's like emotional support, having those services, having those different types of things. And I would suggest that we would look at possibly working and reviewing and seeing what worked and what doesn't work. Because when was the last time, I guess the next question I have is, when was the last time this was edited or amended?
That's a great question. I can look that up here.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fuller. Before I see your hand, Director Lynn, but I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to talk before anybody goes twice. I think the one thing that I would really like to draw attention to is one of the 4 strategies here for Destination 2023. It talks about community partnerships. And increasing partnerships and resources to support students' social emotional needs. I'd like us to consider the relational value of our items in addition to the monetary value. I understand that we are a public school district. The bottom line is very, very important, and I see us needing to increase our relationships with community partnerships, and I think that this could be one way that we could leverage that. All right, any additional? I see Director Lynn, go ahead for a second time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, really quick. Can I get an address on the Marie Street property? I was leaning towards the improvements, but I wanted to look it up for myself too.
Yes, Director Lynn, let me grab that for you. And if I can respond to Vice Chair Fuller, the surplus property was board policy was last updated in 2015. So it was about 7 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's time for an update, because in that was about 7 years ago. We've hit a pandemic now, so that we need to start thinking more about services and how we can work with our community partners. So yeah, thank you.
And Director Lynn, the address is 17917 Marie Street.
Can I get some clarification on that, Director Southerton? The property, they estimate it as is at 300,000, and if we put roughly about 40,000 in it, we'd only be getting 340,000.
That's the expectation. It would be not a complete rehab of the property,
right?
Just to get it into basic selling condition. So not the top of the market. We could potentially maybe invest more and maybe get a higher selling price. And
Okay.
again, these are estimates, so we will put it on the open market, regardless of what's decided by the board, whether
Yeah.
as is or fixed up. And of course, you know, we that's a competitive open market process, so we could get more money or less money.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Director Southerton, are there things that we didn't address that you had asked that you would like more information on?
This has been helpful, understanding that the board would like to review that policy and look at potentially changing it. It might be, if I understand the feedback correctly, it might be something that's the order of operations is just a little change. So we would be looking at charitable organizations and partner agencies perhaps first in some cases versus a public sale. If that sounds right, I understand the board has a policy committee that we could convene a small group and workshop that a little bit.
Yeah, I would consider potentially maybe only organizations that we have an MOU with or something, so that there has to be some checks and balances there.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Chair Solowski, before we continue on, was there other input that the board wanted to provide as it pertained to the real estate piece in terms of the house, or do we feel like that was satisfied? I heard Director Lynn's feedback, but I'm not sure that I heard others' input.
Go ahead, Director Andrews.
I think we should go ahead and list it. Part of the reason, I know that we decided that this property was surplus. It had been originally decided or determined that we thought we might expand into that area, and we decided not. But part of the reason to not hold on to it anymore is that we don't have the resources to really manage the properties. That's not the direct responsibility of the system. I understand Director Lynn wanting to have broader scope, but somebody's going to have to manage contracts to do the work, and we're already stretched incredibly thin. So my hope and guidance is to just market the property as is, fixer-upper, and that would be the way to go.
Director Jordan, or sorry, Director Shields. I don't know, I get the Pams confused somehow. I apologize.
I agree with being an as-is sale. You could be putting money in that you don't know that you're ever going to get back. And trying to work with contractors, who's going to do that? What we oftentimes don't consider is the amount of time it takes our staff to take on something extra like this, when it was already decided to sell surplus property as is. Appreciate you bringing it to our attention, but I would support the as-is process for putting it on the market as soon as possible.
Thank you, Director Shields. Vice Chair Fuller.
I stand with my former point.
All right, thank you. And then I just wanted to, I'll give you my 2 cents, and that's that the return on investment is sketchy at best, and I think that we should just sell as is. I don't know if we have any current MOUs with community partners that we would want to say, hey, you know, give an advance, still put it out on the open market, but just give them a heads up that there's a property coming available that they might be interested in. And I think that that could potentially, for now, address some of my concerns as we build our community partnerships.
Great. Thank you, Chair Solowski and other board members. We will proceed as recommended. And the board also always has the discretion to review offers and will review offers and consider factors as price and other possibility, as occurred with the auxiliary bus lot. We considered community benefit as well with a potential buyer. So thank you. We will proceed and hopefully have good news to bring back. And
Thank you so much. That looks like it's it for reports. Now we do have one confirmation item that was moved, but we'll go ahead and look at confirming the rest of the items. Is there any, can I have a motion on that, please?
to approve the confirmation items as listed, with the exception of the May student class size that has been pulled for further discussion. I think it's actually the student count. Sorry. Student count. Thank you. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. The ayes have it. All confirmation items except for May 2022 student count have been confirmed. At this point, Ms. Andrews, or Director Andrews, apologies. At this point, I suggest we take a 10-minute recess, and we will re-adjourn here in just momentarily. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. The meeting is back in order. Up next, we have board action items. Under old business, 7.1.1, a siding replacement addition to Centennial Middle School. Director Southerton is here to talk about that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Slawski. So the administration and RNC Management Group are recommending the addition of necessary siding repairs and replacement at Centennial Middle School be added to the list of approved middle school bond projects. The district has recently learned of a systemic siding deterioration issue within the exterior walls of the 400 and 500 wing of Centennial Middle School, which for those of you that aren't familiar is the two-story addition to the middle school on the east side of the campus. As such, the need to replace the siding and make the additional related repairs is badly needed. Without this work, water intrusion and damage to the building will continue. It's estimated that the total cost for this project is up to $650,000. The siding replacement and repair project would be completed this summer while the weather is favorable and would be funded with the existing middle school bond project budgets, including in-project contingency funds for unforeseen and expanded issues. It's important to note that this would not reduce the overall bond contingency funds. This would utilize funds that are already within the middle school bond projects budgets. Although this issue was unknown at the time of the bond planning, it is a critical issue that needs to be addressed and is allowable under the bond measure language. The administration recommends that the Board of Directors approves the inclusion of the addition of this project, and the necessary siding repairs and replacement at Centennial Middle School be added to the list of approved bond projects, and authorize the administration to use in-project funds as necessary to complete this project.
Thank you. Let's have some discussion. Director Shields.
I was just going to move that we adopt the recommendation as presented in Board Note 7.1.1 and read into the record by Director Southerton.
Second.
All right. It's on the table. At this point, we'll have a discussion on it, and we'll go through the list again. We'll start with David Lynn.
No questions. I support the motion.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fuller.
No questions.
Excellent. Director Andrews.
Questions?
Director Shields.
No questions?
My only question is, do we need to work with the board or the bond, the BOC before we say spend the money?
That's a great question. And as practice that was adopted about a month or two ago, I notified the BOC in advance of this meeting that this would be considered. I sent that notification out on Friday and received 2 replies from BOC members in favor of it and appreciating the notification. Other BOC members, I understand, received the message as well, but they didn't reply.
Excellent. Then you have my vote. So let's take a vote. Sorry. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. It is a unanimous vote. We'll be moving forward with the citing replacement in 7.1.1. Moving on to new business, 7.2.1 is, first up is language arts and English language, I need some help with that one. English language development adoption with Director Callahan.
Good evening. Need to find the presentation. I'll be with you in just a second. Okay. Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm pleased to share with you our K-12 curriculum recommendations for language arts and English language development. Based on the ODE instructional materials timeline, the next time we'll adopt curriculum in these areas will be 2027-28. With your approval of these recommendations, we will secure 6 years of contracted services, which, depending on the materials, includes online access and designated consumable materials. This evening, I'll share a brief summary of our work these past 6 months that led us to this recommendation, which you'll see at the end of the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize our cadre members who contributed to the collective wisdom and expertise in the room. Cadre members were responsible for learning and leading in the group and back in their buildings. They provided ongoing insights, ideas, and needs through their intentional connections with their colleagues, students, and parents. They used the research, best practices, equity lens, and information collected to make a recommendation. Sonia Nelson-Carenza and Jenny Lucas have been incredibly valuable in this process. We work together to provide a seamless experience across the system with outstanding leadership, really paralleling our work between language arts and English language development. This is the revised visual model of Destination 2023 Superintendent Owen shared. Excuse me. The language arts and English language development primarily falls under the student-focused teaching and learning and effective systems and programs. Anytime we engage in a curriculum adoption process, it is an opportunity for us to develop our practices based on the current research and the changes that are happening, as well as community needs. This process is essential for our educators to stay current in their practices as we strive to meet each student's academic needs. We included our district's equity lens because it was an ongoing focus of the cadre work. We spent significant time focused on students, developing shared understanding of the importance of students seeing themselves in the content. I'll share a bit more about that later on. We committed to shorter times for the meetings after school, knowing that folks were fatigued. We had great attendance for the most part. Each K-12 building was represented with various positions connected to language arts and/or English language development. The group also included learning specialists, title teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators, and beyond, including a counselor. This slide really summarizes a very complex process. So as you read through this summary, I'll just say a few things about it, but I will probably spend the most time on this because this was the process. The curriculum adoption, especially in literacy, is complex, which is why we start by building shared understanding of what is current, what the research is saying. Then we revisit who our students are, the demographics, and the current strengths and challenges of the current program. As we develop this shared understanding, we craft a vision or beliefs document. That document serves as our North Star to revisit throughout the process and beyond. Student-focused topics included essential teaching strategies, how to cultivate relationships and be culturally responsive within the curriculum, the importance of students seeing themselves in the materials. We emphasize the importance of highly effective teaching practices, things like feedback, learning targets, multiple access points, explicitly teaching executive functioning skills. Throughout the process, we ask cadre members to reach out and engage with their colleagues, students, and parents about the direction we were going, then to bring back themes and/or reflections to the committee. Once we began looking at materials, we narrowed the list of quality materials meeting both the state and our district's criteria, with the goal to narrow the choices to no more than two to three. And the rationale for that is so that we could dive deeper into that content to test out the materials. We also created processes for teachers, parents, and students to view materials for feedback. We brought all the data together and asked the cadre to make final recommendations for me to bring here this evening. The next 4 slides are what I would categorize as really our drivers of the process, and so I'll talk a little bit about each slide. But we centered each session on students, focusing on how these materials must provide and/or support our ability to be culturally responsive. The first one is it's a single slide. It's science of reading, and I have to say it is so much more complex than a slide. But in an effort to be succinct, it is challenging to boil it down to one slide. But when you look at this model, it's really braiding 2 key elements to get to reading comprehension. When you look at that top left-hand picture there, you see decoding and you see comprehension. And it's in that combination of that braiding where people are effective readers. And so one of the things, and this has been, I think, for me, for sure, in the last couple years, but after reading more of the science of reading, it used to be those foundational literacy skills were really focused on K2. And what we know now is focusing on them K-12 can actually be a game changer for kids. And so that was, one area that we really looked closely at. If it didn't show up in the curriculum, were there on-ramps for us to do that? Teaching foundational literacy skills is equity in action. I think, looking at the 2 statements around the comprehension, students who come to school with high language comprehension but do not receive effective decoding instruction often experience a decrease in the language comprehension. And so then on the other end of that, students who come to school with low language comprehension but do receive effective decoding instruction experience an increase in their language comprehension. So really getting back to how do we change the system and really make sure that all kids can have access to literacy, and there's no reason why we can't do that. This is looking at the relationship between English language development and language arts, and I'm really happy with the work that they did here. We spent some significant time looking at, so what is the difference between language arts and English language development? More importantly, how do we answer the question of what would language arts instructional materials include that would reduce barriers to learning for students who are multilingual? And so that really kind of came out of that exercise of looking at a Venn diagram of what are the differences and what are the similarities. And so that was also a tool that we used then once we began to look at the materials. This is an area that I have to say I'm most pleased about related to our work, the work of the cadre. We intentionally built in processes for ongoing feedback loops with educators. We reached out to students in December before we even looked at materials and said, what would you like to see in materials? And then each building created time for parents and students to view the materials and to provide feedback. And I just have to say, in my reflection, just professionally, this is the most inclusive process that I have been part of, and so which is super exciting for me. So. This just shows some of the data in terms of what we were able to gather from students, from parents, from teachers. We tried to really minimize the educational jargon. So for parents, very similar to parents and students, we asked questions for the parents. Do you see your children represented in the materials? Do you see multiple cultures, races, religions, genders, sexual orientations, physical abilities, family makeup represented in the materials? Do these materials seem engaging to you? Would your children enjoy interacting with the materials? And do you have any concerns about the materials? And so very similar questions we asked kids as well. And then these are some quotes that came out of the feedback that we gathered. This is specific to our English language development, some highlighted quotes from students, teachers, and parents. Very similar to the language arts as well. And then going to the language arts, here are a handful as well. Some comments that I just want to share with you specifically that I pulled out this evening as I was going through things. What 9th and 10th graders said they were looking for. They wanted to see, they wanted choice, more on mental health topics, examples of successful people from diverse backgrounds, stories about cultural identity, and audio supports. 2nd and 3rd grade, high interest texts with high quality illustrations related to the topics of interest, like elephants and Piggy, Star Wars, Minecraft. But to go on, student choice and what books they can read and what they write about, using laptops to read and write. So 8th grade, kids like exciting stories, science fiction stories. Some would like to see more comics used in class. And then we have the selection or the curriculum we're recommending. And so it is rather cumbersome, so I'm going to get my notes out because I've got to look at a chart to get through it. I'll try to be as succinct as possible here again. But if you just look at the language arts going across, so K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12, I would look in general. Students do see themselves in all of those. And actually, I would say that for all of the curriculums for ELD as well. These were the most favorable selections collectively by teachers, by students, and by parents. And so we had the trifecta, and again, going across all of these. Technology, they all have an online component. I'll talk a little bit specifically about which ones are primarily online in just a second. Both have a lot, or all of them have a lot of choice. If you look at the K5, Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt, the technology piece, online is part of the adoption materials. And we could readily move to a virtual setting and not miss a beat with this. So we were excited about that. There's a dedicated writing emphasis, which in my experience, I've done now 2 language arts adoptions in the last 4 years, and that's a tough one for elementary, is to find quality writing embedded in those curriculums. Let's see. Also, the other highlight of this is the intervention that's embedded in this curriculum lines up nicely with ODE and the ESD support of a dyslexia program that we're really building capacity around. So that's exciting too. In terms of moving across the board to 6-8, Amplify, technologically, this is primarily an online program with hard copies available. Lots of nonfiction. The kids really enjoyed the National Geographic elements. It's accessible. There's lots of a choice, and it also comes in Spanish. And they actually have access to like 11 languages using that, which is very unusual for a curriculum. So Open Up, also primarily a technology online program with hard copies available as well. Diverse text, a lot of community-based learning, promotes collaboration, multiple on-ramps, promoting critical thinking. So that cuts across the language arts piece. Just pause for any questions just on those materials. If I can't answer them tonight, I will get you the answers.
I do have one question. When you talk about online versus hard copy of things, I'm curious, is everything available in a way that can be either made into packets or books or downloadable content, so access to internet doesn't impact those that are learning
Absolutely.
at home?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I mean, it's, from the folks that we talked to, it's almost a standard.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. The English language development, and again, well, I'll go across, I'll start with K-5 and move across the grade bands. We currently are using EL Achieve, which is a systematic ELD approach. We have been using that since 2006, and it is a package that has worked for us as a district. They continue to update with the current research as well. And so you see a little asterisk next to that because EL Achieve, it was not on the ODE list, and so we would consider that an independent adoption, which I am supporting in terms of our recommendation, given the history that we have with that and the training that comes for our ELD teachers. I think everybody in, Sonia said all the ELD teachers are like, they want to take the training again just to make sure that they're up to speed. So I'm comfortable and confident to do an independent adoption. It does, we go through the same rigorous process. We just have to fill out a separate form that says it is an independent adoption. And typically my experience has been, there are some, how do I describe this? Unique programs, academic programs that will choose not to submit their name into the state adoption list because of the loopholes perhaps, or it doesn't, it doesn't quite fit their package. And so oftentimes they just won't submit because they know it won't, they can't jump through the hoops. So, but that does not dissuade at all in terms of the quality necessarily. I've been through a couple independent adoptions, and so I'm not concerned about that at all. And then Senge learning, which is across the board for 6-12, really, very multiple levels of access, engaging. You've got your various language levels from beginner access to advanced. You have inclusive content. It's highly engaging, high interest. It has a history, because they're partnered with National Geographic, a history of being culturally responsive and culturally aware. And so Senge, probably the one with the most consistency and coherence given an ELD program, because if you look at the ELD program and then you go down to the recent arrivers, we also have Senge there. And so that's going to line up nicely with the regular ELD. So our recent arrivers who come in will start with that. And then the last row is Senge Learning Perspectives, and those are, that curriculum is targeting our long-term ELD students, and so again, that's going to line up nicely with everything else that we have. The one recent arriver curriculum that we have that isn't Senge is Vista, which is Get Ready and Get Reading. And when I talked to Sonia, she talked about that really, the leveled readers and including core content within was really a selling point. So that kind of gives you a snapshot. I could go on, but we'll leave it there, and unless you have any other questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the board?
No questions. This looks great.
So let's get a motion on the table and then we can go through and ask for discussion.
I motion to approve this recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Another unanimous decision that, oh wait, no. Now we get to talk about it. We voted. Yeah, I think I got confused. I apologize. Director Shields.
I just appreciate the cadre approach, because when you ask the end users who are going to be in front of the children, working with these materials, will this do the job for them? And then, of course, asking the ones that will be called kids, but the other ones that are young adults, right, in our high school environments. When you ask for their opinion and they can see that it's been reflected upon, that speaks a lot, you know, and it says, you know, your voice is important, teaching voice is important. It just was such a wonderful, diverse group of people that you had engaged in the process, which makes it, for me, to look at it, go, how could I even think about moving against something like this, in the sense that you've engaged even our parents, who, that's a difficult task sometimes, is to get our parents involved, and at a school by school level. So it seems like you've left no stone unturned, and it feels as though people, if asked, would say, oh yeah, that was a really great process, I enjoyed, you know, participating in it. And so it made it very easy. When I read through and looked at your slide presentation here, and as well as in the board book, it was just like, yes, so good. So thank you.
You're welcome. If I can also say, the reason we got such great parent feedback is because of the cadre members and our building administrators. They were all in ways that I've not necessarily experienced in the past for me. And so super engaging, super fun, and they deserve the credit for that too.
Great. Any other comments from the board? Nope. Well, fantastic work. We're really excited to see this put into action and how it's going to impact our youth and our schools next year. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
All right. We got a couple of new business. First read with option to approves. So 7.2.2, policy AC and ACAR with Superintendent Owens.
Great. Last time we heard from Director Shields that she was interested in getting our policies in gear, and so we took that to heart, and we've got a few for your consideration tonight for first reads with the option to approve. The first two that you'll see have some language cleanup that is relevant there. I will pull up on my screen just so I can see what we're looking at here. So the first board note is consider approval of policy AC, non-discrimination, and its accompanying AR, discrimination complaint procedure. As you'll see in the board note, there is House Bill 2935 added an aspect to the definition of discrimination for race that includes physical characteristics historically associated with race, such as natural hair and hair texture. And so that is known as the Crown Act, and you may have seen some information about that in the last few months as well. So what you'll see reflected in the actual policy and then the discrimination complaint procedure is some basic information as it relates to adding gender identity and as part of the language there. As far as the complaint procedure, you will see the same language that we have had traditionally in our complaint procedure. And so any of the customization that you see reflected in that AR is what is currently reflected in our existing AR that accompanies our board policy. The one difference that you'll see on the AR is on page 3, and it's simply the addition of gender identity. So with that, I present this to the board as a first read and turn it over to Chair Solowski for next moves.
Thank you. We'll go around the room and see if there's any comments from all of the board members. This time we will start with Vice Chair Fuller.
No comments. This looks good.
Director Lynn?
No comments. Thank you.
Director Andrews?
No comments I'm ready to approve tonight.
Excellent. Director Shields?
No comment, and I make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Excellent. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Wonderful. We have a unanimous vote for that policy, AC and ACAR, non-discrimination. Next up, would you like to take the next policy, Superintendent Owens?
Yes, thank you, Chair Solowski. So the next policy is consider approval of policy IB, which is freedom of expression. You can see the board note is relatively short. House Bill 3041 revised the statutory definition of sexual orientation and removed gender identity, creating a new definition for gender identity. As you see, it is reflected in the policy itself. You can see the language that has the gray over it reflects the different elements that were added to the freedom of association. So you can see that there's just additional language as it pertains to familial status, parental status, linguistic background, culture, socioeconomic status, capability, geographic location, or gender identity. You can see just a little bit more at the bottom of page 2. But overall, it's just some simple language changes. I'll turn it over to Chair Solowski for next moves.
Excellent. We can go around the room again. We'll go in the reverse order. Director Shields.
Just a question about on the bottom of page 2, top of page 3, modifications or removal of items, etc. Still has the brackets on those. Will we be removing the brackets? And that would be in the content of the...
Yeah, exactly. So the brackets are there to indicate to the board that that is a customization that can be considered, and that the administration is recommending that customization. When you see that reflected in the published policy, provided that the board approved that, it would be, the brackets would be taken away and it would just simply reflect that language.
And why did you strike the superintendent's decision shall be final and binding on all parties?
It's consistent with the way that the policy is currently written, and it allows the opportunity for the individual to have the additional forum of appealing it to the board, which the board may want to be able to weigh in on whatever the matter is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Andrews.
No questions.
Director Lynn.
No questions.
Vice Chair Fuller.
No questions.
Excellent. Can I get a motion on the table?
I move that we approve the policy as presented.
Second.
Seeing as we all had the opportunity for discussion and not hearing anything additional, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Another unanimous decision on that policy. Next up, let's see, we've got another policy here. Superintendent Owens, would you like to move forward with that one?
Yep, I told you I took Director Shields' comments to heart.
Yeah.
So what you'll see here, and I'll just point out something before we dig into it, is that you'll see 7.2.4 is a first read with an option to approve regarding firearms prohibited. And then you will see on 7.2.5 policy JFCJ, weapons in schools. So Director Wright and I had some conversation around this, and really the approval of the 7.2.5 is contingent upon board approval of the first policy. So that's why you'll see the second read of 7.2.5 in new business and following 7.2.4. So I just want to point out for the board's consideration, if you're considering postponing approval of 7.2.4 tonight, then you would want to consider postponing approval of 7.2.5. Obviously, that's the board's prerogative, but I just wanted to set the table before we dug into the actual policy. So what you'll see here is consider approval, I'm referring to the board note now, of policy KGBB, firearms prohibited, and I'll kind of slow down and walk us through a little bit. So in 2021, Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 554, which includes amendments to a couple of ORSs and is now effective. Oregon law has allowed members of the public possessing a concealed carry license to carry firearms on district property in accordance with the ORS listed. Senate Bill 554 created law that now allows districts to prohibit persons with concealed carry license from carrying firearms on school grounds by adopting a policy and posting notice at entry points. A person who is properly licensed to carry may still possess the firearm if the person is not otherwise prohibited from possessing and if it is unloaded and locked in a motor vehicle and in accordance with law. OSBA considers this policy to be conditionally required because if the district wants to prohibit concealed carry licensees from carrying firearms on district property, the district must adopt a policy. If the district does not want to limit concealed carry licensees, it does not need to adopt this policy. To institute this prohibition, this requires a policy adopted by the board to identify all school grounds subject to policy and a notice posted on the board's website, and post appropriate signage at all normal points of entry to the school grounds subject to the policy and in accordance with law. Law enforcement are still permitted to carry, and superintendents may still approve for district-sponsored activities. So with that, the actual policy itself indicates the prohibition of firearms similar to what was described in the board note. So I will not restate what was already stated in the board note, but with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chair Solowski for next steps.
Thank you very much. Shall we go around the room one more time to see how everybody feels about this policy? Oh, yes, questions, please.
So question, the italicized piece in the top of that is not part of the policy?
It's an educative piece for the board. Yep.
Okay, so we're just, that's all.
Thank you for that clarification. Go ahead, Director Shields. That's okay?
Thank you. Yes, after the clarification of the italicized, the two paragraphs at the top, the italicized, I also needed to ask the question about the brackets, that this would include that now third paragraph with the bracketed information that we would post, that the district will post clearly visible signs, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay. Then I fully support the policy as presented.
Thank you. Director Andrews?
No questions. Seems very straightforward and clear and to the point. Thank you.
Excellent. Director Lynn?
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair Fuller?
No questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Seeing that I have no questions, let's see, I need a motion.
Motion to approve policy as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Excellent. Another unanimous decision. We're making good progress on these policies. Director Wright, would you like to continue on the next one?
Good evening, and I will not restate what is in the board policy for policy JFCJ, weapons in schools. All of the same information was in the previous policy, firearms prohibited, and we did review this policy probably about a month ago. Everything that is in brackets will remain. That information is currently in our current policy of weapons in schools. The only place where the brackets would change is on the third page towards probably the second to the last paragraph where it says gun-free zone school signs will, because the board just approved the following policy that stated we will state the signs, then we would mark out may and we would remove the brackets and have will. This is a required policy.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, are there any questions from the board? Let's go around the room. Vice Chair Fuller.
Questions?
Was that no questions? Okay, good. I thought you said questions. All right, Director Lynn.
Just really quick, maybe for Superintendent Owens. I was looking at that last paragraph where it talks about an annual report. And I just wonder, I would love to see an annual summary if and when this policy is used, not just with students, but with any volunteers, staff, members of the public at any events, if we could always, be kept up to speed if this is ever being needed to be enforced.
We can create a tracking mechanism so that we'll be able to provide that information on the regular basis as outlined in the policy. Thank you, Director Lynn.
Director Andrews.
Questions?
Director Shields.
No questions? Shall I make a motion?
Please.
Motion to approve the policy as presented.
Second.
Second.
Excellent. Seeing that we've gone around the room and there were no additional questions, let's take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Excellent. Aye. That's me too. And so that's approved. Fantastic work on the policies this time. I'm going to pull, at this point, we're going to pull 7.3.6, the May 2022 student count out, and we'd like to address that. So I'm going to pull back up here. And would you restate kind of your questions around that, Dr.
Yes, it's on
Andrews?
page 2. So there have been 200 students, we have 200 students fewer in May at the high school than we did in September, and I'm curious how that's happened. What has happened to those kids?
Great question. I see, Mari, would you like to come join the table and address us? Let us know your thoughts.
Let's turn that up. There we go. I'm going to take this off. I'm not going to be able to totally answer it now without doing some research. I did scan back through my years of reports on this, and I mean every year in May, and it is a trend that we lose somewhere between 150 and 200 students a year. Part of it is students start the year with us and they might go to alternative schools. Some students graduate mid-year. This year it has been noticeable that less students have been enrolling than leaving. And I can't tell you why people aren't coming in. That's a different lack than we've had. But I don't have, without preparing ahead of time, I could bring this back next time and have a more accurate read as to what's happening. But it is a somewhat normal trend that people move out to go to alternatives. And we do lose some students, but we do track that carefully and have ways of recovering them. We lost in a bigger group because we didn't have a dean of students in the building who does tracking for part of the year. But I think that's back on track now. Now we're not losing in such big chunks because we know the attendance tracking is better. But I don't think they're totally lost. They're being followed up on whether they lost in the chunk or not.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
How does this affect graduation rates as measured by the state?
Because not all of these students are lost. I mean, many of these students will have gone to other schools, and if they go to another school, it doesn't affect graduation rates. And as I said, some of these students have graduated already. There's usually 5, 8, 12. It depends on the year. Students that graduate early, mid-year, so you've got numbers in there, so that doesn't negatively affect the graduation rate. If they drop out and re-enroll, they might graduate late and be part of the graduation rates. If they totally drop out, that will affect graduation rates. So that there's a variety of ways that can affect graduation rates. And it's important that we trace, and we work hard to do this, trace where people go, because I have experienced that other states don't always ask for educational records. So often we have to get in touch with the family and find out, did your student really enroll in whatever high school in Texas? Because they'll take the records with them, and so the school won't request records. So they'll look like they might have dropped for a while to us, but once we get in touch with the family, we'll figure out that they're enrolled in school. So there's many possible outcomes with this. In a normal year, the counseling department says we usually have more people enrolling, like new enrollees during the course of the year. We didn't see as many as we usually do after winter break, which is usually a high time of enrollments, like the beginning of the year.
So I guess I would have thought that if families were leaving, that we'd see the same trend across the elementary schools, and the middle school actually has had 30 increase enrollment, and the elementary schools have been pretty stable all across the board. So that's why the high school kind of really stands out as having such a significant change, because it doesn't seem to me anyway that it's because families are moving. Maybe it is just affecting high school kids, I don't know, but it would be useful to have that information.
Yeah, and I'd have to pull it because there are so many factors that go in that I don't want to be saying something that's not accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, at this time, should we consider approving that? Yes. Great. So looking for a motion to approve 7.3.6 May 2022 student counts.
A motion to approve the student count?
Second.
Any discussion that needs to happen? Hearing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. It's a unanimous vote. We will have approved May 2022 student counts. At this point, we've come to future agenda items. I'm curious if anybody has anything they would like to bring forward at this point.
I'll start with what's scheduled for the next agenda, and on one of these, I'll wait for a head nod from Director Wright to see if that's actually going to be coming. So the first one is a report from REAP. It's a culturally specific partnership that we have through the high school, and so they have asked to do a report, and so we hope to have them present at the upcoming board meeting. The next one is, I had on the list, the counseling report. And I'm not necessarily seeing a head nod, so it might just be a holdover from previous years, but, okay. No, potentially an expanded mental health report would be good. No, that's great. So an expanded mental health report to go accompany a counseling report. Centennial Virtual Academy program planned for 22-23 and an adoption proposal to go along with that. We'll introduce Mr. Marin Miller as the Centennial High School principal, as was approved by the board tonight. And then, as we've all been waiting for, we will have school calendars, and then also to accompany that, the board calendar for 22-23. So we've got a number of agenda items coming up in 2 weeks.
Excellent. And a note for the board members, we will also be holding another executive session in the coming weeks as we discuss evaluation for Superintendent Owens. So look for more information on that. Any other agenda items? Director Shields, please.
Is that okay? Did that work? Okay. Just along with the board meeting calendar, since we're getting to it for, especially for the summer, it might be appropriate to do another type of doodle poll, because I've already booked stuff. And I'm sure that others, we're so close to June, July, and August that we would want to make sure we have quorums for our July and August meetings. And if you mentioned, Superintendent Owens, about a board retreat, training sometime in that, I mean, we've done those in the past. We haven't in the recent past because of the pandemic. Those are really valuable times when we can spend, time together. It's on. So I would just, like us to explore that and maybe explore dates that we have our board, all of our board members together, if at all possible.
Thank you. Director Fuller, Vice Chair Fuller, please.
I do want to point out, and I just now saw this, that we skipped over a report. It was OSEA report. We did not get to hear from Chris Dow.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fuller. They were not able, or they were not going to present this evening.
Thank you. Didn't know that.
That was a last minute change. Anything else before I get to use the gavel again? Oh, yes, Director Anders.
I do want to have the information about the decrease in the high school enrollment. I don't think I heard you say that, Superintendent Owens.
I've added it now. Thank you.
All right, Director Lynn.
Yeah, just a quick announcement really quick. There's a Portland Youth Climate Festival and March on Friday, May 20th, starting at 11. I'd invite anybody to join me if they want to go.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Lynn. At this point, this meeting is adjourned at 8:33 p.m. And we will be rejoining the executive session after like a 7-minute break. The previous Zoom link. Yeah. Thank you. Yep. Excellent. We'll see you all shortly. Thank you.